Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are exploring a very unique project. It's a bit different from our previous episode, but I'm sure you're gonna love to hear this story. FABRIKA Tbilisi. This isn't just another building, it's a bold transformation of an old Soviet-era sewing factory into one of the most creative and inspiring spaces in Tbilisi. Designed by incredible minds at MUA, Fabrica blends raw industrial charm with a modern twist, becoming a magnet for artists, creators, and free thinkers. From co-working spaces and art studios to vibrant cafes and hostels, it's a playground for innovation and collaboration. So, if you're into urban regeneration, creativity, or just love spaces that ooze character, stick around. You're gonna love this. Let's dive in.
Fabrika Tbilisi is quite it's a different case than from the usual projects how we get approached because we kind of invented the project. So we had this huge project which was first time in our company's whole story. We did this Hilton hotel in Batumi, and it was big five-star Hilton hotel and another block of residences. So it was quite big at the time for us. And so we did it. That project basically took some years. And when we finished it, I mean, we couldn't do anything else. So when we finished it, it was us, two partners, and a couple of other guys left in the office because we didn't have any other design commissions at the time. We couldn't handle anymore. So what we did is we started to come up with the ideas of what to do. And we were really, in the city, we were really lacking the place which could have been something like artistic hub or a creative hub, or creative cluster. So we started trying up the ideas, different ones all around, like just choosing the old buildings or empty plots and designing the ideas around it, and tried to find the investment for that. So this is how we came up with Fabrica. So this was the abandoned sewing factory in the part of the city which was almost never visited by tourists and even the locals. It was like really dark place at the time. And the building was almost unused. Just some part of it were rented out to some strange businesses at the time. And so this is how we started. We managed somehow we worked around the idea. We managed somehow to secure the investment. We became partners in the project and did all the work, including like very first planning, doing the brief for ourselves, doing all the architectural work, all the design, interior design work, and overlooking the construction, as well as hand-picking all the residents that we are renting out the spaces now for, and having the interviews. And I mean, it was one whole thing. So yeah, it's not how you normally get the design commissions, but yeah, this is how it happened, and it was quite successful at the end. So yeah, that's the long story short about how we got the design commission for this.
So this project was also partly self-funded, or you had to?
Well, we couldn't fund it ourselves, but it was our partners who became the shareholders in the project, and we retained the small shares. We're still on board and running the place as well. So we're still on board of directors, and but yeah, we secured the funding for this project, but MUA couldn't fund it. Our company couldn't fund the project on its own. Once we secured the funding, and we had already design process, we started to work around the ideas. I mean, we had to form the brief. First of all, how would it function from the business side of view, I mean, business perspective of the project, because we had to prove to the investors that it would be, I mean, it would make sense to invest into it. Basically, we formed the brief. We said, okay, well, this was like nobody would go to this place, as I mentioned before in the city. So we said, okay, what we're gonna do it, and the building is quite big. It's about 7,500 square meters altogether. So from the initial idea to have the creative hub and creative cluster, it was slightly farther than that, because we had to put some more functions into the brief to make it sensible. So right away we came up with the idea of the hostel, because there were no hostels in the city, like at least the ones which were designed as the hostel right in the beginning. So we thought that would fit the culture of the creative hub as well, and bring like-minded individuals also into the game. But we right away we knew that normally the hostels are built, or the hostels are functioning in the very central part of the cities, and we thought, okay, we will. What we'll do is we'll create a place which will become the center of Tbilisi, because it's going to be attracting lots of people. So and that was the first challenge. So all we had, then what we decided was that, okay, we're going to put artist studios and shops, but well, that's not going to bring enough people, because we need critical mass for the whole thing to function. And even the artists wouldn't want to have the studios in the place where which is far away and people don't want to come. So we thought, okay, some cool places to hang out, like cafes and bars, would really complement the place. But then again, to approach those kind of bars or successful businesses and bring them to faraway place, which is not really far away actually. I mean, if you look at the urban fabric of Tbilisi, it's like very, very central even, but somehow, city lives its life, and some places are left out, and this was our feeling. I mean, we always like this district where it's located, and we always thought that it had a great potential. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the city, but somehow, because of the Soviet structure and post-Soviet times, this is how it was left. Like, it was left without any life, especially after the factory was closed down. It became even worse, because, I mean, it was an active place. It was a big factory, and it was an active place. Lots of people worked in this factory from the neighborhood, and all of a sudden there is this huge place without any life. Especially for this district, it felt even more. So, okay. To continue about the idea of the project, then we said, okay, we want some cool places, some cool bars, and maybe cafes, and the places for people to hang out. Because if you come to the artist studios, okay, you do your stuff, you do some collaboration, whatever you're there, or even for the artists, to go to their studio and work there all day. Then you really like to hang out with some other people, to have the hub. You really need a place to hang out. So, and okay, we got to that, but then to attract the like this food or bar or places like that, you still need for the place to be central or visited by more than just the artist studios.
Mhm.
So we thought, okay, well, hostel is the good idea. Hostel will bring some mass. We'll have artist studios, we'll have cafes and bars in the courtyard, and so it kind of works for all. It becomes a central place because it's place for locals, for artists, as well as the visitors for the hostel. So we thought, okay, we started talking to people, the people we knew who run nice bars and places like that. So we said, okay, we're gonna have lots of people coming to the hostel because it's 385 beds as we designed it, and that was our first time. Actually, we did some research all around, and it became attractive for them. Then it became attractive for artists to have the studios and the shops in this place, and the whole thing just happened while we were designing the whole place.
Right.
And talking to the investors, talking to the contractors. In parallel, it was the most hectic time in our lives, actually, but it was quite cool. So now to move to the design part of the place.
Yeah, I just want to go back a bit. How old was
Yeah.
this building when it was still a factory?
Parts of it were really old. There are several buildings,
Mhm.
even though some look like each other, like one building. There are several buildings. Some of the, like one of the buildings is very, very old. It's over, I mean, not super old, but it's over 100 years old. There are two more buildings which seem like one building, which are also around that age, and they have, there was a small underground shelter even underneath from
Right.
we believe, even though we don't know the exact story, but we believe it's from World War One first, and during that time, so
Yeah.
which was re-equipped afterwards. So this is what we know about this place, and the rest, which is the like tall buildings, and there were factories before that. Those small buildings which are in the courtyard. I'm not sure. Well, if we go back, sorry, okay, we go back. I'm trying to. So in this picture, it's one on the left, like it's only two-story buildings. This is what I was talking about. But the tall ones are like Soviet buildings,
Right.
which are prefabricated industrial buildings. So they're very Soviet, actually. They were all around Soviet Union. These prefabricated parts would come. They were like really bad quality most of the time. And even this was constructed in two phases. So part of it was constructed in 60s, I believe, and the part of it was constructed in 80s, beginning of 80s. So yeah, this is the age of the buildings.
Right.
So it's quite a mix, it was quite hectic. It was growing with the time. Then the factory was re-equipped afterwards, but then, I mean, right after the Soviet Union collapsed, it just the whole thing in Georgia went down. We had two civil wars and actually three civil wars, one of them in Tbilisi as well. And so the times were not good, especially for the factory.
I see.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
yeah,
yeah, I guess we can proceed with
yeah.
the
But
design. Yeah.
Yes.
I have one question in a study part of this study. Since you mentioned you defined this project with your partners, I want to know, having a hostel functionality and the other functionality that you have here was something that you feel the need of that in that area, or you predicted that we're gonna do this by like relying on other functionality? Because in the prediction part, and since this is a bit more complex project, since you define it yourself, it wasn't something that given to you. I want to know how was the study part of this, like the basic concept of this building.
Yeah, it was, well, it's it's hard to tell. I think it was both. It was prediction as well as well calculated, but because it proved the huge success. It's one of the places in Georgia or in Tbilisi, any visitor, I would say, any visitor. I would surprised if any visitor comes to Georgia or Tbilisi, to Tbilisi and doesn't visit Fabrica. So it was a huge success. So it could be. I could say it was a good calculation as well. But I mean, we had. We did the research, but also in parallel, was more of a feeling of creating the place, which has started from artistic hub and the building, because those were the first constants. Because we knew what we wanted to do, and we had this building. Those two were different from each other because we couldn't, I mean, doing just artist studios with such a huge area for Tbilisi, because we have, I mean, and for Georgia, because it's a small country and the city is quite big, but still it doesn't, I mean, it wouldn't work. So we had these two constant, and the rest we designed around it. So we knew what we wanted. We had the building. I mean, we didn't own the building at the beginning, but I mean, the idea was there, and because we also wanted the cheap place. Otherwise, we could go to the center and get the small place, and I mean, it just happened like that. And then we started to think, and this is how it summed up. And obviously, we had to prove each time that, okay, it was financially viable to do that. So that's kind of, we always, we do very big part of our projects is research, always. And we always like to involve into the brief, formation of the brief as well. So I think that's the strong side that we have, and that's something that we like to do. And it became obvious after we did this project.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
The,
So
the,
yeah, this is how it happened.
that's the reason, because it's not an easy task to do, to define a like new functionality to an abandoned place. But I think in this case, artistic hub is, I can say, more flexible to be fitted in different places, and that's,
Sorry,
I think the artistic spaces are more flexible in terms of creativity, like the way of the spaces functions. So
yes.
I think that's the one of the reason that it was successful very well in this place.
Yes. I mean, it's so artistic hubs are always attracting people.
Yeah.
But nowadays, if you look at the creative clusters, I mean, we learned more about it after we did Fabrica as well, because Fabrica became the full member of the Trans-Europe Palace, which is the big union with many years behind it, all around Europe. It unites creative hubs and cultural hubs all around Europe. So we learned more about it, and it's now the cultural centers, they are forming the exact same way as Fabrica was formed. It's not just the artist studios. It doesn't work anymore like that. You need more people. It needs to be more dynamic. It needs to be open to places where you spend more time than just your work studio and limited space where you work. So at the time, it was a very good guess. At the time for us, obviously it was happening all around. But for us, it was a very good guess, and it was just the feeling that we had, and also the constants that we had, because we wanted to do this, but we had to somehow work on with the budget, work with the business model, and also, I guess we guessed it right because we were talking to the people we wanted to bring in. We were talking to the artists we wanted to be here, and and big part of those never had ever their own studios or the shops, and they were doing what they were doing in parallel of having another job. Some in the bank, some in God knows where, but they were still doing that, we said, maybe you can support yourself by only doing what you really like to do. And we were talking to those guys, and we were talking also to these bars and these cool places around city or cool people who wanted to do something like that. So it was the constant dialogue. We were talking with our partner, who is the main investor as well at the time. And it was very dynamic. It was a very dynamic process all around. And this is how I think we got to the end where we did the work. So, and we were doing the design works, and we were overlooking the construction. So it was like very personal. We were completely bankrupt. It was only two partners and one other guy who started as an intern with us when we completed Fabrica.
Oh, wow. So it was a kind of very stressful process as well.
I wouldn't say it was stressful. It was very energetic.
Yeah, sure.
We were doing something that there was no time left to think about, okay, what's going to happen next, and am I going to have any salary, end of the month, which we didn't most of the month. But we were doing something. We never had the time because we were always convincing people that, hey, this is something, something huge, and this is going to be amazing. And we never had the time to be in doubt, never a moment. And if you ask me, that was 10 years ago. Well, it was 12 years ago when we came up with the idea. It was 10 years ago when 9 years ago. Okay, well, it's going to be 10 soon. Since we opened, and if I could do it now, well, I couldn't do it now. That's something I know for sure. But back then, it just happened.
It was a really big collaboration as well. It's not just like you design it and that was the design. Like the whole people were involved in this.
This was something that made us feel each part of the project that you do as an architect or as a designer, because we were involved in every part. And when we had to compromise, we had to weigh all the options. And this gave us the understanding of all sides also. We were very experienced in architecture and design. Overall, we were very experienced, even though we didn't have so many years, many years. We have done many projects before, and different varieties of the projects, and very complicated in technical sense, as well as very creative at the other side. So we had experience in that, but we were always advocating for the design parts, and the rest was, if we had to compromise, it was a It was always the design, so we had to advocate for that. And now we have a feeling, and when we advocate for our design from this point, we know how to explain ourselves, because we also have to prove that there is a value in design and in good architecture. So yes, it gave us a huge experience in that sense, which is, I think, something very, very,
True. Yeah.
very valuable for us, at least. Yeah. So yeah. Should I move to the design approach?
Yes.
Because it's
Thank you for
also
explaining
very,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, okay, we moved. First, we came to the building, and we saw and we immediately had the courtyard and the building, and we immediately fell in love with it. First time I remember it was like stinking, and most of the ground floor was used as the toilets, basically. So it was the terrible place, but and there were burns. I mean, there was fire in some places. I guess just some guys decided to warm themselves up, and there was not much to burn, so the walls were like smoked and stuff. But behind all of that, the place had this soul that you could feel. And we fell in love with it right away. There was nothing that was attractive, because as I mentioned before, it was old Soviet, prefabricated. Every city in all Soviet would have it, and it was probably the lowest quality that was done in Georgia, and there was nothing special. But somehow there was a feeling that you could feel the soul of the place, the spirit of the place, and that was something we didn't even share with each other. You just like it, and that's all. You like it. Besides the smell, everything was nice to us. So okay, we started to design, obviously, and as soon as you start to design, okay, we're gonna change this, we're gonna plaster that, we will repaint this place, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. But all of a sudden, we had this feeling that what we liked about the place, there was the danger of completely deleting it. Not destroying it. There was not much to destroy. It was destroyed enough, but just deleting it and emptying it from the emotions that we got. So we came up with the philosophy that we will only change things that we absolutely have to, because of the new functions of the building. Because the building would have the new purpose, and obviously you had to do that adjustments. And there was the huge changes that we had to make to the building, because it's a prefabricated building. It's 6 by 6. So if you're changing, say, vertical circulations like lifts, or adding additional staircase, whether it's emergency route staircase, the exit staircase, or the functional one, you end up with the penetrations, vertical penetrations of 6 by 6 in each floor, which is the huge change, because prefabricated parts, you can't just cut out the small part structurally, you had to take it all out. So we ended up with like 6 by 6, 9 vertical penetrations, because we had to adjust it so that emergency routes would be to the modern standard for the new function, because it was different before. So we had to move 2 lifts, we had to move 2 emergency staircases, we had to create 1 new staircase, which you see in the picture now, and So that gave us 9 penetrations, ones that we removed, once we created new, and yet it gave us still lots of room to not to destroy what we saw. So we kept all the walls, we kept everything that we didn't have to put, like where we put the hostel rooms, obviously we had to put the new gypsum walls just to have the room sizes and etc. to what we wanted to get at the end. And so this is how we approached it. And I mean, the place was really rough. So I mean, you can tell by the pictures, but and nowadays you kind of one might be used to this kind of look because it's common now to see this, but back then it was quite surprising. So the idea was, you know, I mean, the whole of the courtyard we left the same way as it was looking. We just removed the part we didn't want it. We introduced the new parts. So we thought, you know, we would feel this place is already good. And if you brought me the nice chair, I would just sit here and feel good. So we started to bring new furniture and new elements, which were beautiful. And the rest we kept in then old Soviet factory style, like half painted walls, because that was cheaper. The parts of the walls that you could touch, you would paint it. The rest it was just white. It was the cheapest white paint. So and this is how we went on. We did. Well, this is one of the diagrams that we did. It was there was the vertical new penetrations, and we continued like that. So
in most cases, it was just whether you retain the existing finish or you just paint it over with a new paint.
Well, where we had to, we did, because we couldn't leave the rooms like guest rooms with old dirty paint.
Yeah.
But in the lobby, we could do that because rooms are being cleaned in a different way and they really have to be resistant and, you know, very, very clean.
Yeah. So with regards to the old structure, did you find that you had to reinforce or retrofit some of the existing like main structures, or was it still stable?
Yes, these structures, I mean, we had to reinforce some of the parts, but these structures are normally stable because they are over-designed, because they had to be produced in all over Soviet Union, where the structural standards are different. Obviously, some are very high earthquake zones. Tbilisi, our city, is also, but probably not the highest. So they were over-designed and they were designed for heavy machinery. And so those structures are more or less quite sound. You just need to do check the joints and perhaps do some welding there, here and there, but mostly there wouldn't be any big issues with those kind of buildings. So yeah. So in terms of the design, it's when you come to the, I think we achieved our goal. When you come to the building, it feels like, well, nothing was changed. It's left exactly the same. The guys just brought the new furniture, hung some beautiful stuff, and you know, it feels like homey. But in fact, there were huge changes. Huge changes, because at one point when we were looking at the building, it was like all just shell. And the skeleton of the building. It was looking like almost the skeleton of the building. Obviously had no roof because we had to change the roof. We put some terraces at some points. There were 9 vertical penetrations, as I said. Huge, huge changes. And yet when we finished it, it just feels the same. We exposed most of the work that we did additionally also. So it was quite an honest approach to the design, and I can't speak about the design anymore because I'm so used to it now, because our office is in Fabrica now, and it's been so many years. So I don't know how people take this, how people feel about it. But the first idea that you come to the place, you place your own favorite chair, and it's an empty place, and there is nobody giving you the rules. I think it was accepted by people very well right in the beginning, because the place felt very democratic because of the approach for the design. It's our opinion. Because anybody could feel home. It wasn't posh. It wasn't for artists and cool people only. It wasn't for any certain age. It was just an empty building. You just had to pick the spot and just sit down there freely for yourself. So this was the feeling we aimed for, and I think it worked, because from the day one, it's been full of people of every age, any background, any nationality, actually, locals or visitors, and I think it worked. Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the diagrams that we did. We love doing the stairs normally during our design. We like introducing the new staircases, and we never want them to be to rise and land in the same place, not to be like usual staircase, but we like it to travel. So we like it to go like to say, to start traveling from one place of the building, end up on different levels somewhere else, and this is something that we really like. So we played with that a lot.
And those are on steel frames, I believe. Your stairs.
Yes. Normally with those kind of staircases, it's very expensive. So we decided to do to make it cheap, and we only use the plywood and steel.
Right.
So
How do you manage those sound when you step on a steel step? Because there's like a hollow sound during when you use steel structures. Do you? I'm just curious on the technical side. Like, does that matter
It's
to you?
You only have sound of plywood,
Right.
because we have plywood stairs as well, and we painted it with epoxy resin, which is very durable one, and also it's rubbery, so it has some kind of impact sound insulation qualities as well. So, and it lasted for a very long time, and still there, and you don't get that sound. We don't get any vibration. We approached the contractor, who was structural engineer also. We worked with him long time, I mean, on different projects of the building designs, which were very, very brave from our side, which we did in the very beginning of our career. So it was structurally very complex building, which was designed in steel. So this is how we met this contractor, who was structural engineer himself, and he's had this steel manufacturing background and manufacturing shop as well. So, and we worked with him, and it was quite interesting, actually. So we got like super nice structure, not very expensive, and visually pleasing as well. So that's our Fabrica.
Yeah.
And this is a very first concept. Well, it's not quite very first. Yeah, well, the beginning. So some of the parts are not like that. Like this part is removed completely.
And yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
what
was
about the paintings on the facade of the building, where I
Oh yeah,
can only assume those were done by real artists?
Yeah. Well, what we did is one of the things, I mean, urban art back then, it was almost non-existent in Tbilisi. And there were a couple of street artists that, did some work, and they were good friends of ours. And so we made the opening of Fabrica, we made street art festival with them. So the day we opened Fabrica, we had street art festival combined with the graduation of one of the education facilities that we have in Fabrica, which is called Creative Education School. It was existing elsewhere, so they moved with us. And so these two events we merged. So we had like huge party with the street art festival. We still and I mean when everybody was thinking to repaint the facade, so we said, okay, we're not going to repaint it, but we still need the scaffoldings. So we put the scaffoldings, we brought all the artists, which I never had an idea that we had quite so many in Tbilisi. And that was the very first street art festival. And this is how it happens. And now it's an yearly festival, which attracts global artists, like very big names as well. So this is how all of that happened. It wasn't there when we came.
Uh-huh.
It was just plain
Yeah, so it grew like
stuff.
unexpectedly in a positive way. That's really
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah. It was yeah. So it worked quite well. I mean, we planned for it for a long time because those street artists are one of the residents in Fabrica, very first ones as well. So before we came up with the idea of doing the festival, we proposed to them, like to the other residents of ours, that, hey, do you want to have the place? You want to have the shop, like to sell the I don't know, the street art stuff, the paints and everything else. And well, okay, it's a nice idea. And I mean, we still had plenty of time when the construction was going, so we said, okay, at some point we said, maybe we do the festival, and we bring all the artists that we can get our hands on, and we'll just put the scaffolding without any safety measures, which was quite crazy at the back at the time, and it just went on. And it was the huge party. I remember there were so many people on the day one when we opened that I was really afraid that something would go wrong, and something would not last, like structure. We didn't have any security. It was crazy. And it just stayed full like that, from the day one.
I just have one question about the interior part. Did you have to just design the interiors for the artist individually, or did you just offer them a general space and they can do whatever like they vision were there themselves?
Yeah, we didn't do any design for any of the residents that we have.
Mm.
We just made the guidelines for the signage. Anything from the exterior. We made the design guidelines for the signage from the outside, but interior we didn't. But obviously we had, I mean, the place already had the feeling, and everybody else kind of liked it and adopted that. But we didn't involve, and we have few other rules. We said there won't be no advertising whatsoever inside the courtyard. So that was something new also at the time. Yeah, I mean, there were certain rules that we created right from the beginning.
That's true. And
Yeah, and the free space for all, anyone, any age, anyone could come and do whatever they liked. And yeah,
yeah, I
some
get it.
certain rules, but no, we didn't involve into the design of.
And I have another question. Were there any like help from the government or any restriction from them, since it was a like abandoned factory?
Zero.
Zero.
It
In no
doesn't happen
case,
in Georgia.
they
No.
didn't care about it.
No, not at all. Our partner, who is probably the bravest businessman of all around the planet, not only in Georgia, actually he, he got all the fundings. I mean, to buy the building, and the rest we borrowed from the bank.
That's true. But it's a really great project, and I think the social part of this project is really really high. Like you can see that after some point, like people move on and get the place going by themselves, and it's gonna just happen afterward. Really great job there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a final question before we go to the next project. I can't help but notice that you mentioned a lot of times about the feeling of the space. So I guess that plays a major role in the design of this building. And I assume since your approach is pretty much preserving most of the structures, how much of the feeling was important, and how was it played in the design?
Um, I think right in the beginning we realized that it was very important from different perspectives. One and very first probably is that we felt it and we loved it. And the next would be also the part that really made the important role, that it could have been accepted by everyone equally. We didn't want to make the place where it felt what somebody would feel. I mean, we were not afraid of someone saying, okay, this is too posh and I'm not going to go, because it couldn't happen anyway. So it was a different idea. But we had a feeling that it could, by someone, it could have been, okay, this place is cool, it's for hipsters, it's for artists, and well, it's not quite my place. And I won't feel myself at home here. So it was very, in both senses, it was very important. And I think the second one is what we realized during and after. But the first one was when we decided in the beginning that, okay, if we repaint that, if we repair this, if we get rid of that, and then we lose something that we like. We felt that it wouldn't be the same. So it was very important, super important, I would say.
Yeah.
That was the main drive. So this is where we realized, when we put this in one sentence, we will only change things if we absolutely have to.
Right. So a lot of your design decisions revolved around trying to preserve that feeling, that sense of place. Yeah.